It's long been said that there have been many inventions that could have changed the world in a positive way, yet were denied from the public, or worse, the inventor mysteriously died, making you wonder if someone didn't want their inventions getting out and impacting the way people live their lives. It all comes down to the thought that owners of the world's largest oil, energy, banking and tobacco corporations do not have the public's interest at heart and are in it for greed and control over the population. Now, we cannot say that is true, but when you hear about the inventions that could well have changed the way we do things, in particular be cheaper and more efficient for the mass population and the environment, it does make you think whether these huge companies have us and the planet in mind. Because from the invention of a harmless cigarette that was created many years ago, to the countless free energy generators, here are 5 inventions that were suppressed, with most of their inventors suffering from mysterious and untimely deaths. Tom Ogle. In 1978, at the age of 19, a young man called Tom Ogle stumbled upon an invention by pure luck that could have changed the automotive industry. It all started when he was fiddling around with his lawnmower and accidentally punctured a hole in its fuel tank. As opposed to patching it up, he used a vacuum line and ran it from the tank straight into the carburetor inlet. Ogle was amazed when the mower kept running but the fuel level hardly moved, and it continued to tick over for 96 hours straight on half a tank of fuel. Over the next 5 years, Ogle made hundreds of experiments on his own Ford Galaxy, but removed the carburetor and fuel pump and replaced them with a secret box he called a filter, and the car went from over 20 miles per gallon to 100. Ogle maintained he was able to achieve this due to his secret pressurized and vaporized fuel system that injected fumes directly into the engine's firing chamber, meaning the device would not only get incredible mileage, but exhaust emissions were also practically non-existent. Now at age 24, he notified the press of his invention and claimed he was going to showcase it by driving from El Paso, Texas to Deming, New Mexico, aiming to complete the 200-mile trip on just 2 gallons of gas. Reporters and experts turned up to witness this feat and inspected his car for hidden fuel tanks, and when they were unable to find any discrepancies and Ogle made the journey, he was hailed as the inventor of an energy-saving device that also cleaned up emissions. However, despite the initial excitement and funding, there were rumours that other people had similar patents, including General Motors, who had patented a similar device several years earlier. All of a sudden, everyone who shared Ogle's passion for his fuel and emission-saving process started to wipe their hands with him and suggested it would never work. His royalties and payments stopped, and the man who was once offered $25 million by Shell Oil was broke. His marriage ended and he became dependent on drink and drugs. Then in 1981, Tom was shot outside of a bar in El Paso and died later that night at a friend's apartment. His death was recorded as a suicide after autopsy reports indicated he had overdosed on drugs and alcohol, although many of his friends said he would never have killed himself despite his current struggles, and that he had been saying for a while that he thought someone was putting drugs in his drink. The person who shot him was never found. Many questions still remain about Tom Ogle, like who shot him, why were no cars ever fitted with his invention, and what happened to the so-called patents for similar fuel-saving devices. In Tom's own words, when asked if he was afraid of oil companies or the Arabs coming after him, he responded with, "No, not anymore, I've had too much publicity. If I kept my invention a secret, I might be worrying, but there's nothing to worry about anymore." The question is, was Tom right, and was his invention that well known? Or is this the first time you've heard about it? Stanley Meyer. Stanley Meyer and his twin Stefan were born in Columbus East Side on August 24th, 1940, and from an early age, both were building things and coming up with their own inventions. As an adult, Stanley gained some impressive credentials, attending Ohio State University, working for NASA, and being involved in the development of the Gemini and the Star Wars project. But during all of this, Stanley and his engineer brother built up a multi-million-dollar transport and spare parts business, and Stanley was the author of over 42 patents, including inventions in oceanology, cardiac monitoring, and banking systems. But his most famous was the water fuel cell, which he claimed could allow an automobile to run on water rather than gasoline. The water fuel cell supposedly split water into its 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen, then burned the hydrogen to generate energy. Stanley claimed the device required less energy to perform electrolysis than the minimum energy requirements measured by conventional science. He demonstrated his invention to Professor Michael Lawton, Dean of Engineering at Mary College in London, Admiral Sir Anthony Griffin, a former controller of the British Navy, and Dr. Keith Hindley, a UK research chemist. They were all in agreement that the cell produced far more hydrogen-oxygen mixture than could have been expected by simple electrolysis, making the impossible possible by turning ordinary tap water into hydrogen fuel, efficiently enough to power his dune buggy. Despite some hailing Stanley as a genius and visionary, there were others who believed he was a fraud and still do to this day. You see, his water fuel cell was later examined by 3 experts in court who found that there was nothing revolutionary about the cell at all, and that it was simply using conventional electrolysis. The court found Meyer had committed gross fraud and ordered him to repay 2 investors their $25,000. After this, nothing more came about it. Then, nearly 20 years after researching and perfecting the concept of his water fuel system, Stanley and his brother dined out with their latest Belgian investors in the Grove City Cracker Barrel on March 20th, 1998. Stanley took 1 sip of his cranberry juice he had just ordered before grabbing his neck and running out the door, dropping to his knees and vomiting violently. He died there and then, and his last words were, "They poisoned me." At the age of 57, Stanley Myers, the man who once claimed he could have ended reliance on fossil fuels, was dead. Many of the key elements of his invention died with him, as the water fuel cell was never fully completed and never released. Despite a detailed investigation by police, the eventual cause of death was listed as a brain aneurysm. His brother Stefan, who is the only one who knows the way forward with Stanley's invention, has refused to have anything to do with it or complete his brother's work after watching what he went through, convinced the invention would have changed the automotive world forever, and for this reason his brother was killed. The question is, was he really a fraud because no vehicle manufacturer has incorporated Meyer's work, despite the patent expiring and his inventions going into the public domain, available for all to use without restriction or royalty payment? Lester Hendershot. Lester Jennings Hendershot was born in 1898 in West Elizabeth, Pennsylvania, and grew up to be an inventor of many practical items. His most significant was the groundbreaking generator that was powered by nothing but the Earth's magnetic field, that was able to power several appliances in his home. Needless to say, top scientists were unable to explain it and knew that if it could be perfected, it could eliminate the need for conventional electricity in every household around the planet. It all came about in 1925 when Lester was taking flying lessons and realised the need for a 100% reliable compass. While trying to produce one, he realised the power of the Earth's magnetic field, and it gave him the idea to produce a motor utilising this free energy. As work progressed on the motor, he began to realise that a magnetically powered motor may not work as well as a magnetically powered generator, so he concentrated on making one. Soon it was making news headlines, and even Colonel Lindenberg and the military began showing interest. However, the initial flurry of excitement worn off, as many started to claim Hendershot was a fake, even going to the length of displaying a supposed generator of his in front of the public and proving that it did not work. After this, it became apparent to those who supported Hendershot that there were people who were set on discrediting the invention. Hendershot still continued for many years with his free energy generator, and in the late 1960s, he was convinced he had an opportunity to present his invention to the US Navy. He produced 2 models and a 56-page proposal, but there was little interest. Then, a year later, in April 1961, Hendershot's son returned from school and found his father dead. His death was recorded as suicide, although no investigation was ever carried out. Many, including his family, believe he was killed as he was a threat to the large energy companies after he continued to progress with his invention. It was also reported that Hendershot had been approached by a large corporation who he refused to name, that apparently told him to stop all activity in connection with his motor or generator. All Hendershot would say was that if he was successful with his generator, it would be a serious threat to their multi-million-dollar industry. It's thought he accepted $25,000 on the condition that he did not build another unit for 20 years. He also told his family at times that he feared for his life. It's wrong to blame someone for being responsible for Hendershot's death, but given the fact he was convinced his generator did produce power and perfected could be revolutionary, it seems no one was interested in what he had come up with, and you can't help but wonder why. The Palladium cigarette. Every year, around 5 million smokers and over 500,000 non-smokers exposed to secondhand smoke die from tobacco-related deaths. But what if in the 1950s, one scientist came up with a cigarette without the carcinogenic chemicals? His name was Dr. James D. Mould, and he worked for the North Carolina tobacco company Liggett & Myers. His role was to test the harmful effects of tobacco on lab mice, and through his studies, he was able to isolate the materials in cigarettes that caused skin cancer. Armed with this knowledge, he started a project to produce a safer cigarette that would eliminate or at least minimize the harmful ingredients. Mould's project became known as Project XA, and at first he had the backing of Liggett and Myers. It took James 25 years to produce a cigarette that relied on the use of palladium and magnesium nitrate to destroy the substances in cigarette smoke that caused cancer. He called it the Palladium cigarette. However, after talks with lawyers, Liggett and Myers withdrew their backing. It's hard to believe, but lawyers had advised that by launching a safer product would lead to lawsuits from customers of their original product, as it would be admitting they were unsafe. Don't forget, this was around the time where it was fashionable and in fact deemed healthy to smoke cigarettes. Unable to continue with his work, James was requested by Liggett and Myers not to publish anything about his findings, and 25 years of work was abandoned. At this time, Liggett and other tobacco companies continued to sell cancer-causing cigarettes, with the general public unaware of the harm they were causing. Dr. Mould had effectively been gagged by the company. He died in 2002, knowing he could have saved the lives of countless people if it were not for the tobacco companies and their refusal to admit that they knew how dangerous smoking was. What's even more upsetting is that now tobacco companies have to state how dangerous smoking is, but nothing seems to have come about from Dr. Mould's work, and this could have happened many years ago, potentially preventing an untold number of lives. Dmitry Petronov. This next person is the most mysterious in this video, but the information on him is seriously lacking. We do know he definitely existed, and that he definitely died under suspicious circumstances. His name was Dmitry Petronov, and he was born in Kiev in 1952, but went on to study at the best engineering school in Berlin, and later worked for an aviation company for over 20 years. In his spare time, Petronov invented things, his first being a very bright LED flashlight that gained some interest although was considered expensive. He then created a plasma battery, which he maintained could operate for 3 years without being recharged. He went on to use one to apparently power his entire house. Now, Dmitry admitted the battery was technically nuclear, but only emitted the same levels of radiation as a mobile phone. As word got around, in 2009, Dmitry was invited to visit a military lab in Moscow to demonstrate his device in front of generals. Petronov was gone for a week and took a duplicate device with him, which the military kept. When he returned, his sister said he was very excited, and although he said he couldn't talk about the details of the meeting, he told her the military had agreed to fund him as long as the battery was only used in Russia. Then, just a week after the meeting, Dmitry had a visit from a smartly dressed man who introduced himself as Vladimir. After the visit, according to his sister, Dmitry seemed different. Just a few months later, on February the 13th, 2010, Dmitry went out for a coffee as he usually did on a Saturday morning, then picked up some bread from a bakery, and that was the last time he was seen or heard from. When his sister returned from the police station after reporting him missing, there was no electricity in the house, and it turns out that neighbours saw 2 military men entering her and her brother's property and leaving with Dmitrov's plasma battery. 2 weeks later, and no closer to finding out what happened to her brother, his sister received a parcel containing Dmitry's watch. Now, what happened next I cannot be certain of, but over a year after his disappearance, a decomposing body was pulled from Russia's Volga River, but their teeth and hands were missing, making identification impossible. There is speculation that this was Dmitry Petronov, the man who apparently powered his entire house on a single homemade plasma battery, because if this wasn't his body, then where has he gone? So that's 5 inventions that could have changed the way we live, either in health or finances, or by the effect that we have on the planet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.